We're live, baby. Talk UFC 245. Um, Kamal Usman beats Colby Covington in the main event. We'll start there. What a fight that was, man. They were going back and forth, man. Two high level wrestlers, but ends up being a striking fight. And I was really impressed with both of these guys, able to stay in the pocket and exchange and just, who was gonna break first. That was like the big question. And Colby Covington Colby goes back to his corner after, I believe, the 3rd round. He says, "I think I broke my jaw," which I'm not quite sure if that ended up being true or not, because the UFC Dana White at the post-fight conference says, "Yeah, he does have a broken jaw," but then I saw some other people saying he didn't, so I'm not quite sure the truth to that. But even if, man, to stay in there for the last 2 rounds and take those shots, that was crazy. A lot of people said the stoppage was too soon. I thought it was a legitimate stoppage, but unfortunately in a title fight like that, seeing the scorecards in retrospect, I believe it was 3-1 Usman on one judge's scorecards, 3-1 Colby, and then 2-2 on the other guy. So very close fight going into the 5th round. And I think, Colby started out that 5th round on top. But yeah, he seemed to fade, and Usman seemed to stay composed and stay cool, calm, collected in there. He was landing that right hand really nice. He was going to the body really nice with the right hand. It seemed to be hurting Colby there, and eventually gets that finish. That one shot at the end with that right hand, man, was just sent Colby back on his ass. And he tried to cover up. He tried to stay in there, but the ref stepped in pretty quick. Um, so now we have a situation where Usman is the champ, and either, you got Jorge Masvidal, you got options there. You got Leon Edwards, who, you know, props to Usman, he's trying to take the legitimate challenger in Edwards, but I think the UFC might look for, bigger business moves with the Jorge fight, or, potentially make Woodley Covington if Covington's not out for a while, if he did break his jaw. That's the fight to make with them, I think. And then you got Edwards, Usman, or or you got Jorge. I don't know the route they're gonna go. Jorge is one of those guys that can pretty much fight anybody, but who knows? Boomachino, baby. Um, who knows these days? They go so many different routes. It's hard to say, what's gonna happen, but I think Leon Edwards deserves his shot. He's put the work in. He's beat high level guys, and he's shown a lot of improvement each time out as well. Then we had Alexander Volkanovski, who beats Max Holloway in a very, close decision fight. I thought Alexander Volkanovski won. He was really chewing up that leg early on. And we see, Max is a rhythm fighter who picks up and gets better as the fight goes on. But unfortunately, you know, he didn't start too strong. So I feel like, that first round he kind of gave away, and Volkanovski was chewing up that leg nice. And he was, getting the calf kicks in there, and you saw Holloway switching stances because, he probably was taking a toll on his leg. And the good thing is Holloway could fight really, really good both ways, like southpaw and conventional. So, you know, that's something that he has that not everybody has, which is good for him in a case where, like, your front leg's hurting and you got to switch stance. So, I thought Holloway was coming on strong towards the end, the 4th and 5th round, but it was still fairly close. And you probably give Alexander the first 2 rounds. I'm not sure about the second, but definitely the first round. If they do the rematch, which would be nice to see because Holloway's defended his belt so many times and he's been a very good champion, taking on all the number 1 contenders. I think in the rematch, we'll see a different Holloway. I think we'll see a Holloway that's coming out a lot more fast paced early on. He knows that he can't go to the judges. It seemed like towards the end, he was really trying to land hard body shots and land that straight left, and was trying to put a stamp on it and get a finish. But Volkanovski's so tough, hard to get a finish against a guy like that. So, man, great performance by Volkanovski. He's shown, you know, Great composure in there, listens to his corners, and the way that he shut Aldo down and then beat Max is really impressive. So we'll see if they do the rematch next or what they do, but who knows where they're gonna go with that. I think they'll lean towards the rematch, to be honest. Well, you got, Korean Zombie facing Brian Ortega, or it was supposed to happen, but Ortega got hurt, so now it's Edgar. I don't see Edgar, f- slipping in and fighting Volkanovski if he beats Zombie. But if Zombie wins, you never know. Um, Amanda Nunes Duran to me. That was a good fight. Nunes, I knew she was going to try to pressure that wrestling from the first fight. Obviously, she had a clear advantage there. And she even said in this fight it was easier to take Jermaine down, which is weird, 'cause she had years to improve there. Jermaine is a great striker, and, she's dangerous there. And she showed that she has good enough skills to stand with Amanda and do really well. She landed that check kick that was really beautiful to the head. And she threatened on the ground a little bit. She showed some ability to throw up armbar triangle, but really long legs. It was hard for her to get the finish. And Amanda Nunes just played it really smart. Kept taking her down, kept staying on top, landing just enough ground and pound to keep the fight there. Jermaine was trying to create a stall and get the fight stood up, but Amanda stayed on her really well and just did enough on top to keep the fight there. And I really would hope to see Jermaine improve on her wrestling and her scrambling abilities to get back up to her feet, because you're gonna need that to fight at this high a level. You can't get stuck on your back with no hope and no ability to get back up to your feet, because you're just going to lose on points. People are going to be able to control you and just land enough to keep you down there. So yeah, Nunez wins again. She thinks she wants to go up to 145 and defend that belt next, but we don't have much options up there. There's not that many contenders, so we'll see what happens next with her. Marlon Moraes versus Jose Aldo. I scored the fight for Jose Aldo. I thought he just barely won that fight. He had a lot of forward pressure, and Moraes came out the gate hot with those switch kicks to the head, very dangerous, very fast and explosive. But one thing I wanted to talk about was the weight cut. A lot of talk about Jose's weight cut, which was warranted. He did look sucked out further out from the fight, but actually on the scales, I thought he looked all right. He seemed in good spirits. It's hard to tell. He has a skinny, lean build to begin with, so it's hard to see how detrimental it was or how different he looked. Some pictures came up on the internet of him making 145. He actually looked even worse. So that was interesting. Maybe he did it all right. Maybe he dieted like really disciplined further out, and he got lean and lighter, and he did everything correct. Who knows? But he performed well. His chin was there. He took some hard kicks, some hard shots, but he was pressuring forward. I thought we could have saw a little bit more volume from Aldo. He was a little bit hesitant for some reason. He started landing good body shots, and he was quick, but he wasn't like pulling the trigger that much. He was just kind of moving forward, cutting off the cage, but letting Marias get away with a lot of movement side to side, and not really cutting him off with any aggression. Just kind of out positioning him with his feet, but not really throwing too much. But he looked good, and I thought he just barely edged out the decision. It wasn't a crazy controversial decision, but I lean towards Aldo. And now Henry Cejudo puts out that video saying like, "I want to fight Aldo." That'd be crazy if they make that matchup off a loss from Jose Aldo. So I don't know what they're gonna do there. Peter Yan comes out with a big win over Uriah Faber. He looks like a demon in there. Nobody really finishes Faber that clear cut. Beautiful exits off the clinch with his striking. That head kick came out of nowhere. You got to watch out off the clinches with this guy. He throws elbows, kicks, knees right off the break, and you got to be aware. I think Uriah Faber lost focus there for a second and got caught bad with that kick, and was pretty damaged. He took a lot of damage in that fight, but he did look competitive early on, which was cool to see, because 41 years old, been out of the game for a while, and you're fighting a guy like Peter Yan, who's very active, a young, hungry guy who's running through the top of the top in the division. And Faber was, showing, a good competitive fight in the early first round, but then Yan started to take over and was just starting to land more and harder. And I think he was frustrated at first with Faber's movement, but then he found his way and landed that beautiful head kick, man. That was nasty. What they're gonna do in the bantamweight division is confusing. I don't know. They got so many options. Marias beats Aldo. Aldo potentially won that fight. Cejudo's calling for Aldo. You got Aljamain Sterling's coming back. He's recovering from his injuries. Uh, Cody Garbrandt's coming back to fight a Sun Sao. We got Dominic Cruz waiting out there, recovering and training and potentially ready to fight soon. Who knows? Sandhagen is trying to fight Frankie Edgar, and that fight might not happen. So what are they gonna do? I don't know. With Peter Yan, you know, I feel like his fighting speaks for itself. He's definitely a future champion potentially, but he doesn't speak English, so I think that hurts him as far as business goes. So when it comes to that, someone not speaking English and not really having that personality to sell tickets, I feel the UFC is more willing to risk them losing and give them more matchups instead of catapulting them for a title quickly. Obviously him fighting Faber was a risk. If Faber beats him, it's like, you know, what do we do with Peter Yan now? You took all of his hype away, all of his momentum, and it was against a guy who was previously retired, who's older, who's on the end of his career. You know what I mean? So risky fight for him. Props for taking it. He got the finish. But who they going to give him next? I wouldn't be surprised if they try to match him up with Sandhagen to see who's the true number one contender. Maybe they try to match him up with Marias next. Um, Maybe they give him Cody if he beats a Sunsao. You really never know what they're gonna do in that division right now. I think Cejudo's got to make a decision, and then we'll move forward from there. And those were the 3 title fights, man. Well, not the Jan Faber fight, but man, the 3 title fights on this card. I thought that, Colby had the biggest chance of winning the title. I knew Alexander was a threat, but I thought Max was gonna get it done. I was very confident in Nunez getting it done again, but man, the tides are turning over here. Moving down the card on the prelims, Jeff Neal, what an impressive finish on Mike Perry. We don't see Mike Perry get finished like that ever. Jeff Neal came out, very composed. I always knew that left head kick was going to be a problem. And, if you've got to feel bad for Perry, didn't really even get a chance to perform. And that's one of the worst feelings, when you lose early in a fight like that and you don't get a chance to perform. I know what that's like. It's terrible. You just want to get back out there and redeem yourself. But Jeff Neal shows beautiful composure. That left head kick lands flush, and he follows up with great killer instinct. Lands a couple more left hands. Perry falls down, and he lands another couple left hands on the ground. Beautiful accuracy, beautiful killer instinct, and man, Jeff Neal's going to be a contender soon off of this one. I would think they're going to give him a top 10 guy after this fight. Fortis MMA is making some big noise, so props to them. Oh man, what a knockout for Irene Aldana over Caitlin Vieira. I thought Caitlin Vieira was a force to be reckoned with in this division. I thought she could be next to challenge Nunez, but man, Irene Aldana puts a stop to that with a beautiful knockout. And you don't see many knockouts in the women's division flush like that, clean, where it's where they fall and they're out cold. So that's very impressive stuff for Irene Aldana. She'll definitely catapult herself into title contention with just that one punch right there. So that's big. And now I'm sure people are going to want to see her challenge Nunez as well, knowing that she has the power to finish people on the feet. So looking forward to see what they do with her next. Amari Akhmedov gets the decision against Ian Heinisch. That fight I thought was going to be very competitive, very even, and that showed in that fight. It was kind of back and forth. It was all about the wrestling and the control. Who was gonna outposition who, and Amari Akhmedov got the job done. Matt Brown, man, the guy's back and he's still vicious. KO and Ben Saunders, who has taken a lot of damage in his career, but Ben Saunders on his back is so dangerous with his jiu-jitsu, and Matt Brown prevailed and had some heavy ground and pound strikes there. And those elbows are just nasty, and you could see that Saunders was put out, and it was a good referee stoppage there. Keith Peterson, shout out to Keith Peterson, the no nonsense. He's such a good ref, man. He's always, getting in the right position to see things. He's very aware, very alert, and he's on top of his game. So I always like when Keith Peterson refs my fights. Chase Hooper, the guy wants M&Ms, that's it. 20 years old in the UFC off the Contender Series, takes out Daniel Tamer, who's, no slouch. He's a tough guy. But Chase Hooper really put on that ground display. His jiu-jitsu sharp. I think he has some room to improve on the striking. So, hopefully they move him along slow. They give him the right matchups because he's just a really young guy trying to make his way. But his jiu-jitsu game is really solid. So that was an impressive win. Um, eventually wins with the ground and pound, but his jiu-jitsu was on point, had a lot of good positions, good submission attempts. Get the guy his M&Ms and send him off on his way. Brandon Moreno looked really impressive against Kai Kara France. I thought Kara France was going to get the job done, but Brandon Moreno was really confident on the feet. He really controlled the octagon, and he came alive as the fight went on. I thought his range control was beautiful. His accuracy, he had his hands down, kind of trying to talk to Kai Kara France and get him in the firefight. And Brandon Moreno just got better as each round went on and just started picking him apart and was just landing the better shots. Jessica I missed weight by a big margin. She said she had Flo, her cousin Flo is in town this week. So I guess, that affects you, but who knows, all these women face the same deal. So I guess you can't really use that as an excuse, but that's what she said. But nonetheless, she comes out with a decision victory. Close fight though. Could have went either way really, but she gets the job done, and she needed a big win off of missing weight by that much. You really need to perform after that. Puna Soriano gets that big KO on the first fight of the night, man. Um, and not many people were expecting that. He's undefeated, but people thought maybe he would utilize the wrestling, because Oscar Pichota has been submitted before in his career multiple times. So, that was a big win for him for his debut for sure. And another Hawaiian in the mix here at middleweight. So we'll see what happens with him. And that was it. That's UFC 245 for you, real quick and easy. Boom, baby. Let's get to some fan questions. Adam Rose, Colby seemed to gas out later on. What's up, man? Yeah, I wouldn't call it gas out, but I think that Usman had a little bit more will to win, and that's really where the difference was towards the later rounds. He stayed composed and he had that willpower, and I think he was just landing hard shots on Colby. It was definitely affecting him. He was hurting him, and you could see Colby landed strikes of his own, but Usman was just unfazed. Christopher Velasquez, Neil versus Ponzinibbio. I agree. That's a beautiful matchup next. I think that's a great style matchup. Both of those guys are top guys in the division. I think that's a big step up for Neil, but I think he can get the job done. That would be an exciting fight. Let's do it. Book it. Let's see what we got here on Twitter. At GD6ILLY. Next fight for Colby and Woodley. And does his stock go up from that war? Yeah, of course. Colby talks a big game, but he has to back it up. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. But to go out there and perform like that, I think, only makes his stock go up. Yeah, he lost the fight, but he's definitely um higher in demand as far as wanting to see him fight again. I am sure that we'll see those two fight again in the near future because who else can deal with that pace and that pressure? And both of those guys didn't even utilize the wrestling, which was kind of something I expected because in that fight, a lot of people were saying, like, man, whoever's the first to shoot a takedown, if they miss that takedown or if they get that takedown, that's going to be the big difference maker in the fight. It's a lot of energy to shoot for a takedown, especially against someone who's got strong hips and can defend that takedown and end up in an advantageous position. So none of those guys wanted to chance it. They just wanted to scrap. And both of those guys' stock went up. I think they might do Colby Woodley. That's the fight, in my opinion, but depends on if Colby broke his jaw or not. We'll see. But yeah, we got to get more questions in this shit, man. Only one question on Twitter. You guys are slacking on me. Come on, dog. Come on, dog. But yeah, that's it nonetheless. Thank you guys. If you give me a thumbs up, I appreciate it. If you subscribe to my channel, that'd be great. We're gonna keep on putting out content, try to do as many as I can. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Brian Boom 135. January 18th, Boom is back. UFC 246. Let's go, baby. Boom.